Welcome, Truth Seekers, to another episode of the Straight Shooters Show. We'd like to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Don't forget, like, share, comment, subscribe. Do it again. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Those are things that will help the show out. My name is Todd Braley, and I'm an indie filmmaker. And with me, as always, and he hates when I say this, but the thunder from down under.
I don't mind it. It's just nobody ever calls me that. So only here, and I like that. So yeah. So yeah, I'm Itai Guberman, also an indie filmmaker.
Also an indie filmmaker, amazing indie filmmaker as well. And with us tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we have the legendary actress. She's an amazing actress. She's also an author, a published author, and she, in her past days, was an amazing dancer as well. And I want to bring that up too. Without further ado, just like to introduce Miss Debra Lamb. Deborah, thank you for joining us tonight. Yay!
Thank you for that wonderful, lovely introduction.
You are more than welcome. So thanks for joining us tonight, Deborah. Really, we've been trying to get Deborah on the show here. We've kind of hit and miss with some stuff, but we finally were able to get her on. We're going to have some fun tonight. So stick around. Don't go anywhere. So, all right. So let's talk a little bit. Let's talk, just briefly about how you got into the business, how you got into the film business. If you want to just give us a Reader's Digest version.
Yeah, sure. Well, it all started when I was a itty bitty little kid, and I begged my mother to put me into ballet class. I'm like, please. I had this little 45 recording, and it was one of those little kid records. And this one was the story of Tina the ballerina, and I played it so many times. And it was about a little girl, Tina. She wanted to be a prima ballerina. That was her dream. And she wanted to go to this, like the big premiere French ballet performance, whatever it was called. And her brother, Jacques, took her to this ballet thing. And the grande dame, prima ballerina, she fell ill and she couldn't perform. And Tina, the ballerina, the little girl ballerina, wannabe ballerina, she jumped up on stage and she said, I'll do it. And she just danced her way around the stage. She knew all the whole dance and everything. And then she saved the ballet, and she grew up to be a very famous prima ballerina. So that was this little children's record that I played like over and over. You know how little kids like to play things over and over? Well, I'm actually still like that, but so I begged my mom, please, can I take ballet? So my mother said, okay, I'll put you in ballet class under one condition, that you practice. You can't be lazy about it. You have to practice. I'm like, yes. So I started ballet, and this is in Portland, Oregon. So I started ballet when I was 7 years old, and my mom made me practice, and I hated it. After school, in fact, I had a closet that was built into a little ballet studio, and a ballet bar was put in there for me. So I was made to practice. But I tell you, that was the beginning of a lifelong involvement in theater and dance and musical theater. And there was some years during high school where I wasn't as good at being responsible about practicing and showing up to rehearsals when I was supposed to. During my high school years, I was taking drama. I think I even took some kind of drama in junior high, maybe. I don't know, but it was mainly in high school. I always took drama and dance classes. And I was in the ballet company that I was in when I was 7, from 7 to 14 in Portland, Oregon. And we put on big, very professional, very big productions, stage productions. And we had 2 major productions a year. So I did that for 7 years. So I was in 14 of these big productions, very big, elaborate theatrical productions. And then my mom moved us to LA. And so I wasn't part of the ballet anymore, but I made up for it by taking drama and dance in high school. And then by the time I graduated from high school, I really made up my mind that I was going to go into acting. And I wasn't really able to like just dive right into it. I had a lot of hardships during that time. It was a very difficult time for me, but I was able to, get myself together. I mean, okay, so basically my mom kicked me out of the house when I was 18 and I was still in senior high. And it wasn't anything having to do with me. It wasn't anything that I did. I was a good kid. So there was a lot going on, a lot of drama. My mom was going through a divorce, a lot of things. So basically, I was kind of homeless during my senior year in high school. And I was just kind of living with different friends, just going from friend to friend, from friend to friend to friend. And I had to get a full-time job while I was in high school. Well, actually, it wasn't quite full-time, but it was almost full-time. So I had to go around to all my teachers and tell them the situation, because it was so hard for me to work a job and to try to do homework and stuff. So it was very hard, but I was able to graduate with decent grades. My teachers let me do a lot. I did a lot of like creative special assignments, like extra credit stuff that made up for me not fulfilling all the actual real homework. So like I was an artist. I am an artist, but back then I really was very good at drawing. So I would draw out these storylines for stories that we were supposed to do in school. But I would draw the pictures of the characters and make like little scenarios, and I would do stuff like that. So it was kind of like, what storyboarding might be.
So,
and right? Exactly. I would make little scenes with the characters. But anyway, so I graduated from high school, and then I was, completely pretty destitute, but I got all these different kind of jobs, and eventually I would get like little bit of higher paying jobs. And then I got to the point where I could afford acting classes. So it took me probably a year or 2 after high school before I actually was able to enroll in a good, prestigious acting school. It was the Van Mar Academy of Motion Picture and Television, something like that. Anyway, it was a big school back then. But that was my beginning. And yeah, so then it just kind of went on from there.
Where did the fire reading come into it?
Oh, a little later. I had a girlfriend who was a magician's assistant, and his name was Willie Wizard, and he worked at the Magic Castle, and he taught her how to fire eat, and she was part of his show. But that had happened many years prior to me being friends with her, but then she taught me how to do it, and then I incorporated it as one of my skills. And it came in quite handy because I did it in like some music videos and also some films, a bunch of films, actually. I was in Point Break.
Some fairly big ones. Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of.
Point Break. For all of those who are fans of the movie Point Break, the good one with Keanu Reeves.
The original.
The original.
The good one.
Yeah. Not the fake one.
Not the fake one.
The
I
real
haven't
one.
even seen the
But yeah.
second one.
But it was really cool. I got to work with Catherine Bigelow. I mean, that's a big deal. And
Absolutely.
and Keanu Reeves and Lori Petty and Patrick Swayze was there, and they were all there. And I did my fire spitting thing, and in between takes, Keanu Reeves would ask me about the fire eating, say, "Yeah, that's really cool. How do you do that?" And so I was just talking to him. I'm like, "Oh, you do it like this, blah blah blah." Well, I did a little fire eating thing in Wild at Heart, David Lynch's Wild at Heart. So that was cool. And then what I was saying was, I did the fire eating in some music videos, a couple music videos. And also, I did some fiery eating in a couple of my first indie films that I worked on in the very beginning of my career. But then I cut that out. I phased the fire eating out of my, whatever you call it.
Took it off.
My repertoire.
Took it off your resume.
Well, I took it out of my repertoire.
There you go.
Because
didn't want to be pigeonholed as a fire eater, but more.
I was getting a lot of people just contacting me for that. And I'm like, I'm done. I'm done. That's it.
It's a specific skill, so it's always in demand, I guess. So
yes. But and that was back in the 80s. I don't know, when was Point Break done? What year was that? 1990.
Yeah, it was 90 or 91 when that came out.
Yeah, exactly. So it was I did some of the fire eating, was included in some of the projects I was working on in the 80s, and then the early 90s, Point Break and Wild at Heart, and then you jump ahead 10 years, and in the early 2000s, they were doing the show, one of the Star Trek shows. It was the show called Enterprise with Scott. Let's see, was it Scott Bakula? Scott Bakula. Oh, thank you. He knows Scott Bakula. And I was hired to do fire eating in their pilot episode for that show. And it was an amazing scene. It was one of those kind of scenes where the crew beams down, and they're beaming down in this planet that has all these different aliens and all these different kind of people with, just like the cantina scene in Star Wars, all the different aliens that are there. So I was there. The makeup people did an amazing job on my head and my body, because they body painted me. They had these really cool tracks all the way up and down my spine, and they had stuff all on my face, like these print things on my face. And then they made me a gigantic alien head. I mean, it was gigantic. It was like huge. And but I never got to see it because, for one, pictures weren't, on film or in pictures, because pictures weren't allowed. I mean, it was very strict. I was too scared to try to take a picture of my thing, because, you'll get fired. They'll fire you. Yeah. So, yeah. So, and I don't know, I'm sure somebody, at least the makeup people, they took pictures, but I never got to see them. So that scene that I was in, it got cut from the pilot. Aww. Yeah. So it was so disappointing. It did. It got cut. I was so disappointed. But there's an article that I think all you have to do on Google is type it in and look up scenes that were cut from Star Trek. And I'm in there, and there's this one picture of me with my fire torches, and I'm kind of like, opening my mouth and like I'm gonna eat fire. But the problem is, it's this view.
Oh, okay.
That's the view. It's
from the front, yeah.
Yes. And so you can't see the head. So
We'll see if we can find that.
I would love it if
Yeah,
somebody
Put that
I'm looking
into
it
the
up right
episode.
now.
Yeah, it's
Do-
it's actors whose scenes were cut in Star Trek shows or at the Star Trek series.
And this
Actually,
is specifically Star Trek Enterprise. So that
no,
might...
not specifically Enterprise. All the Star Trek shows.
No, I'm saying this specific one is from that, so
The
that might help
picture of
find
me
it.
is from that. That's the only Star
Yeah.
Trek show I was on.
Do you remember what kind of alien you were?
I don't know what they called it. I think they just made it up.
It
They
sounds
didn't-
like a Romulan, maybe, but I'm not sure.
No, not a Romulan. I had one of the big, giant, big conehead alien heads.
It was the Coneheads.
The coneheads. Yeah.
Dan Aykroyd was somewhere in the background.
Instead of the head being straight up like that, it was, it was
in
kind
the
of
back.
curved. It was like the head in Alien in the movie Alien.
Yeah.
It was quite something.
I'm sure. Did that like, was that heavy? Did that weigh, or like where
It was
kind of
kind of heavy. Todd was saying something. Were you saying something, Todd?
Did you find it? Oh, we can't hear you, Todd.
We can't hear you.
Yeah, I did find it. I turned off my mic for a second. There was a jet fighters flying over. So
okay.
but I did find it.
So you found the picture?
Yep.
Todd is recording from the set of Maverick 2.
Yeah, right.
You can take a screenshot of that picture.
I will.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
We'll add that in.
Yep, I will add
That's
that
awesome.
in. I found that. Okay, so I'm gonna.
You found it.
All right, cool.
That's awesome.
I always like to be able.
And then the other thing, Ty, since you mentioned that you would try to find it, find pictures or something. I wish somebody could. But so if Ty, are you one of those sleuth type of people? Those research sleuth people that can find anything?
I'm not so much a sleuth. Just sometimes I'm determined when I look for something specific. But
what about you, Todd? Are you one of those sleuths?
When I'm looking for something, I have found shit that most people would say, "How the hell did you find that?" So yeah, I hunt things down on a regular.
Okay, well,
so
then in that case, I have an assignment for you. And for anybody listening to this show or watching this show,
homework.
If anybody out there can accomplish this, I would just, I don't know, take you out to dinner or something. But okay, so the thing is, I was in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked with John Candy and Steve Martin. So I was initially hired to be a dancer in one of their scenes. So it's a scene that got cut out of the film. It's a scene where, the thing is, Steve Martin's trying to get home, right? So it's toward the end of the film, and they had this car. Well, the car blows up or explodes or something, or catches fire, something like that.
Right.
So that is in the movie. That's still in the movie, right, Todd?
Yeah.
Yeah, the car catching fire is there. Yeah.
The car fire, right. Okay, too. All right. So then right after that happens, which got cut out, they go into a strip club to because Steve Martin needs to use the phone. So they go into this strip club, and of course there's dancers there, and I'm one of the dancers in this strip club. So, that was, and then I also had a modeling job first, before the strip club scene that I got hired for. I also did a modeling job for John Candy's shower curtain ring calendar, because he's a shower curtain ring salesman, right?
Right.
So I don't think they ever showed this in the film, but they made a prop for the film. It's a calendar with pinup girls on each month, and it was a full calendar, and each girl had a theme for that month. Standing in a shower, not necessarily doing this, but posing to, not the shower curtain, but it's the shower curtain rings.
Right.
And I was Miss September, and I have the calendar. John Candy, I think John, no. did he give me the calendar, or somebody else might have given me the calendar? Well, anyway, I had the calendar, and I can't remember if John Candy actually gave it to me or I already had it and I brought it. I don't remember, but I have it. I still have it. And it was signed by John Candy and Steve Martin. It's getting very faded, unfortunately, but they signed it. Anyway, so John Hughes asked amongst the girls, okay, we need somebody to do an improv scene with these guys. So I volunteered, and because I was in improv at the time, I was in an improv troupe with a improv company called the Wild Side Theater, or just the Wild Side, run by Sam Lagoria, who's still a friend of mine. And so I volunteered, and they ended up picking me. So I got really lucky. I improv this whole scene with John Candy and Steve Martin. First, John Candy comes up to the stage, and I'm pretty much almost naked, not completely naked. I had a little something. I had like a little G-string on, but other than that, a G-string and high heels, and that was it. So the scene is John Candy comes up to me, and he does his typical, famous John Candy, nervous thing that he does, getting all flustered. He starts talking to me, and then I am doing the same thing he's doing. So we're both like stumbling over our words, and I start telling him about how I like to do everything naked. I bet that episode on Seinfeld, the episode on Seinfeld where Elaine goes and tells that guy at the company party that she likes to do everything naked. And she's like, naked, naked, naked. I like to do this naked. I like to do that naked. Oh, but I got cut out of the movie. So how could she have taken it from me? Well, anyway, I did mine first. Years, a good decade before that show is even on the air. So I did a whole scene where I'm telling John Candy that I like to do everything naked. I like to vacuum naked. I do this naked. And anyway, I did it first. But so it was a really funny thing. And then we're just like having this fun banter back and forth. Then Steve Martin comes up, and he's like trying to drag him out of the strip club, and he drags him out. So that's the scene. So, and then when he walks up, I start like insulting him. And this is improv. This is all improv. Mm-hmm. We're just doing it off the cuff of our, whatever you call it. And I just started insulting him. Nobody told me to insult him, but I just started doing it. I just started insulting him, and I'm like,
it just came over you.
Yeah. And I'm just like, oh, you know what? I don't even remember what I said. So anyway, he's just like glaring at me, and he drags John Candy away. So, and then John Hughes yells, cut. And then everybody, and John Hughes started it. Everybody just starts busting up. I mean, they were literally rolling on the floors.
Nice.
The cast and crew, everybody there were the room was completely full of laughter. And I was like, oh, good. I'm glad we were funny. So then afterwards, this is, way before cell phones. I really needed to call my then boyfriend. And I think he needed to pick me up or something. I wasn't sure. But so John Candy was so sweet. The nicest person that you would ever have met. I mean, everything you've heard about John Candy, everything you think about John Candy being the nicest person who ever existed is true. He was so sweet to me. He let me come into his trailer, let me use his phone. Then Steve Martin came in, and I had the calendar, and John Candy had already signed it. And Steve Martin, I don't think he was he really wanted to sign it, but he kind of begrudgingly signed it. He was okay. I mean, he wasn't like mean about it. I could just tell he was like, oh, all right, but yeah, so that was cool. And then, but that was a great experience. Now the homework is, okay, this is the homework part. So the movie, I got invited to a screening for the cast and crew at Paramount. And I was given a cast crew list. a one sheet with, on one side it was the poster for the movie, and then on the other side was everybody that was in it.
Mhm.
My name was on it, and they were handing it out at the door. So I took it, and I was like, "Oh, good, I wasn't cut out." Then I go into sit
Movie.
down, huh?
And then you go and watch the movie, and they cut you out.
Well, I go in and sit down, and there was an editor sitting behind me who recognized me, and he says, "Oh, I recognize you. Your scene is so funny." And I said, "Oh my God, thank you." I said, "Oh, that means I wasn't cut out." So yeah, so then we're watching the movie. It gets to the end where the scene should have been, and it's not there. And then the movie ends, and then the editor behind me, he said, "I'm so sorry. I had no idea you got cut out. I didn't know that you were cut out. I saw the scene, but I didn't know you were cut out." And so he felt bad for me. And of course, and I was with at the time, my boyfriend, and I get out to the parking lot, and then just the tears start flowing. I'm like, that could have been my big chance. Oh, I wasn't in the movie. So then a few years ago, I have a girlfriend. Well, she's a very talented filmmaker too, who I worked with, but we've become friends. And her name is Michelle Nesk. And she directed this thing called 333 Illuminati with Tonya Atomic, which that name always cracks me up. But so she told me that she loves planes, trains, and automobiles, and she had a copy of it, somewhere in storage, on VHS that she taped when she was in Canada, of course, a long time ago, because I worked with her just like 5 years ago.
And
way back.
Scene back in, right?
The scene was in there.
Yep.
The scene was in. She said, "I saw you in it." I said, "How did you know I was in it?" She said, "Because I saw you in it." I'm like, "What? No, I got cut out. How could you have seen me in it?" She described the scene. I'm like, "Oh my God, you did see the scene." She recorded it off of TV on VHS tape when she was staying with, I think it was a relative in Canada. So, and then when I asked her about it later on again, she said, I got stuff on my screen. I had to get rid of it. She said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. There was some kind of flood where she had all this stuff. There was a flood. It got destroyed. So she didn't have a copy anymore." So then like a couple years ago, after she told me that, actually it was like a year after she told me that, this other filmmaker, and I, it's on the tip of my brain, but I can't think of his name right now. But he told me that he messaged me like, it was probably been 2 years ago now. He messaged me and said, "Oh, I didn't know you were in planes, trains, and automobiles." I'm like, "Well, I was, but I got cut out." He's like, "I just saw you." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He was in a sports bar in Canada, and it was on TV. And he says, "I wasn't totally paying attention to the TV because I think he said he was playing pool or something."
Mm-hmm.
And, but he said it was on, and I saw you, and he described the scene. I'm like, "Oh my God, that's it." And so he said, so after that, I said, "Oh, is there any way you could try to figure out where I can find this?" And I think he told me that he tried contacting the TV station, but he didn't get anywhere. So.
Well, I'm already looking as you're talking about it. I'm starting to look, and there are like 4 or 5 things that talk about scenes that were cut, and that once we get done, I'm going to go in search of, because I didn't even think to look for that back when you and I first met. We talked about this, and I didn't even think to go looking for it, but yeah, it sounds,
I know
it exists. So we're just got to find it.
Two people many, many years apart. When she saw it, it was a long time ago. And when he saw it, it was on TV, both in Canada, and he saw it on TV like a couple years ago.
Oh, wow.
I did have one. What?
No, I'm just saying it was just 2 years ago. 2 years ago.
Yeah, he just saw it. I think it was 2 years ago. He just saw it. It might have been like a little bit longer than 2 years ago, but it was just a couple years ago.
Okay.
And I had a friend who was trying to look, and he came across the articles that talk about that a lot of scenes were cut. There's one big article that talks about all of that, and then there's other articles that talk about that one time there was some screening at somebody's house, and I don't know if it was John Hughes' house or somebody else's house, but there was a bunch of people there, and some of the people I think were in the film, but there was a bunch of Hollywood people there. And he showed a version that had a lot of scenes in it that had been cut from the theatrical release. So there was another version with a lot of scenes, but who knows what happened to that version? And who knows if that's the version that somehow gets played in Canada. And I've been on other interview shows where I've said, can anybody figure this out? But no luck. No luck. But,
Wow.
It's probably just to do with like censorship laws different in Canada. So it's probably it was in that version, but in the US it was cut out.
well,
the US tends to be a bit more strict.
it's a holiday film. It's a family film and a holiday film. It's a Thanksgiving film. So I'm sure somebody said, yeah, we can't be showing boobs,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in Canada,
now
it's like, woo-hoo, Thanksgiving and boobs.
Yeah.
Well,
And also it's a cult classic. It's been a long time, but by now it's probably less a family film.
Right.
And just a cult classic.
Right.
So
right. It's not as important. It wouldn't be as important now to keep it like puritanical because the stuff
Because
you see on TV, you see boobs on TV.
Yeah.
No.
On regular TV now. So
yeah, I think I've seen bare breasts on regular TV. I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah.
In Australia for sure.
From the time that I met you, when we were going to do what were we going to do? Oh, Misfit 2. And I was doing my Debra Lamb homework. I always try to do homework on actors that I'm planning on working with. And I came across an interview that showed Deborah at a convention. And the girl asked, the woman that she was talking to asked her, she said, hey, is there any kind of movie that you'd like to do that maybe you haven't done yet? And I think she was waiting for her, because it was a horror convention, she was waiting for her to say some specific kind of horror movie. And Deborah said, I would really like to do like a Hallmark movie, or some kind of holiday movie, or just something that has something that's not horror. And I don't think that woman was ready for that. And so
it was. I know who it was. It's my good friend Raina Young, who goes by Miss Misery. She's a horror hostess. She has her own horror show, and she actually writes. She also does films. She's a filmmaker. And she's also directed music videos. I was in one of the music videos because her husband is in this band called Damn It. And they did this great music video that I was in where I play a mental patient. I love that video. Well, anyway, and she does all this stuff. She's so talented. Well, anyway, back then, this was at the Twisted Terror convention. And it was way back in, oh God, I don't know. I think it was like, 2000 and maybe it was 2000. No, not 2017. No, it was before that. Oh, I don't remember. It was like 10 years ago, maybe. I don't know. I can't keep track of time, but let's call it between eight and 10 years ago. Who knows? Maybe it was longer. Who knows? But anyway, yeah. So she was interviewing me, and of course, I think she said something about she, because she's a horror hostess,
Mhm.
and her whole persona is Miss Misery, and she was. I don't remember what she was talking about, but it was on those lines. And I think she said something about, would you ever want to play something like a mother or something like that? I'm like, of course I would. And then I think I elaborated saying that I would love to do family films and holiday films and things like that. So yeah, you're right.
So then after seeing that video, I asked Deborah about being the mom in this movie and Paradise Road, and she was just all over it. And she even came out here on her own dime to help us shoot a promo teaser trailer for it. So yeah, that was kind of the beginning of well, I mean, we kind of talked for a while though, didn't we? Before Paradise Road, weren't we talking?
Yeah, we had been talking for a while. Yeah, but then after I came out to shoot with you in Colorado, then we became really good friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love you, Ty.
I love you, Deborah. So yeah, I mean,
I love you too, Ty.
I love you too, Deborah. This is a love fest.
So I mean, when she came out and we started, and a lot of what we were doing for Paradise Road was ad lib, which Deborah was really good at the whole
improv.
Thing. Yep. So all of that stuff kicked in, and when she came out, I was just watching, and Bree Frank was a part of the trailer shoot, and she comes up to me and she goes, "Wow, she really is good. She's really." I wasn't sure. Well, you never, because I never saw you outside of stuff that you had sent me. It's one thing to watch stuff that you've done and go, "Wow, yeah, she's pretty good," but it's another thing when it's in front of you and you're watching.
Yeah, plus probably what I had available to show you at the time didn't really show me in the light of what I can really do. Right. I've been limited.
And when you see edited footage, you don't know what was improv and what wasn't, and how it was shot behind the scenes. Seeing it being shot is a different,
absolutely,
experience altogether. Yeah,
absolutely. So yeah, it was just kind of one of those things that Bree and I were just kind of talking a little bit, and I was like, wow, you know what, this is gonna fucking work. This is gonna be awesome, So yeah, and then
cool. That's so nice. That makes me feel so good. I hadn't heard that before.
Yeah, that was something I just kind of kept under wraps because it was just me and Bree, and it was just like, super quick, and I don't know. I don't always run around. Things pop back into my head sometimes. So
yeah, sure. But that's cool. I'm glad because I love Bree.
Yeah. She was,
and this led on to you working with Bree on You Like to Draw.
Yes. Yep. Because
with Paradise Road, it's going to take a much bigger budget, so that's going to be like a ways away. But then you started writing what was going to be a short film for You Like to Draw. And I said, and I read the script, and I was like, oh my God, this is so good. It was so good. And I'm like, Todd, don't waste this wonderful story on a short film. Don't do that. You have to make this a feature film. It deserves a feature film.
We had the same conversation about the chip.
Yeah.
Don't make it a short, make it a feature.
I was thinking that when Todd was doing this short, what was going to be a short film, The Chip, I was thinking, why is he doing a short? But then I found out you're making a feature film. And for those watching who don't know what we're talking about, we'll go back to talking about You Like to Draw, but The Chip is another film that started out as a short film. I'm not in that one, but it looks really good. I saw a bit of the teaser trailer, and I was thinking the same thing, Itai. I was thinking, Todd, what you doing? You got to make this feature film. But I hadn't actually talked to you for a while when you were working on that, so I didn't get a chance to say, Todd, what are you doing? But then next thing I know, you're making it up.
Itai knew what you were thinking, so he.
Yeah. But next thing I know, I found out, oh, you are making it a feature film. So good. Yeah. So it was. So yeah, I mean, and when Deborah brought up the whole idea behind You Like to Draw, of making it a feature film, next thing I know, I think it was an hour and a half conversation, oh, you can do this. And so as she's talking, I'm sitting there writing things down, and I'm like, it's one of those collab efforts where you go, yeah, and then I can do this. Yeah, well, what about, and then you could do this. Oh yeah, but what about this? And then she could do this, and then we could do this, and we did that back and forth for like an hour and a half. Yeah.
And little beknownst to Deborah, in the credits of the movie, I gave her a story by, which she was, she said she was pleasantly surprised at.
I was so touched. I had no idea he was going to give me that credit. And he also gave me a co-producer credit, which was very nice. And in case anybody's confused out there, we're talking about You Like to Draw.
Yeah.
Currently available on Tubi and Amazon Prime.
Yes.
But yeah, so I did see You Like to Draw. I wasn't able to go to the cast and crew screening like I was supposed to, because I ended up getting a job on another film, so I couldn't go. So I missed the screening. But then I saw it when it came on Amazon Prime. I saw it, and then I was like, "Oh my God, Todd gave me a story by credit." And in the IMDb, I've got a story by credit. I was very touched by that. That was very.
But how did you feel about the fact that he cut out all of your scenes from the movie?
That keeps happening to me. Why does that keep happening to me?
Not in that one. Not in that one.
First it's we're the planes, trains, and automobiles. Then it's Star Trek. Then it's Robocop. By the way, I was in Robocop. I got cut out. But if you get
1987 Robocop.
Yes.
The original. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm in one of those scenes where the guy is doing the commercials that says, "I'd buy that for $1." That guy, yes. That crazy guy. Well, yes. I'm in one of the commercials, and they filmed a few different commercials. So I worked with Paul Verhoeven. How cool is that? Mm-hmm. But my commercial got cut out. But it's a very cute little commercial. If you get the Blu-ray that has all the extras and the deleted scenes, my commercial's in there.
Is it?
Yeah, the whole commercial. The whole commercial.
I have a box set. You know what? I'm gonna have to get that bitch out and go digging into that thing. And I didn't know that. I didn't know it was in there. I knew you told me you got cut out, but I didn't know that commercial was in there. I'm making
do you have the blue? I checked to see. I don't know how many different box collections there are of Robocop, but it's probably in that one.
Okay. Yeah. I have the special edition Blu-ray. So
another friend of mine who I've worked with a few times, Chris Notarilli, he's the director of Mother that I was talking to you about.
Yeah,
we watched that. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Psycho fan film. It's a short film, but I play Mrs. Bates. It was very well done, and I also worked with him a few times. I worked with him first on a thing called, God, what was it called? Oh God, I'm having a brain fart. But then there was Mother, and then there was Frenzy 3 was the first thing I worked with him on. I just had a small part on that. Then Mother, and then I worked with him on it was MIB. It was a Men in Black fan film, which I like that one very much too. But Mother is really the standout thing that I worked with him on.
But you're the center of, I mean, you're the star of that one.
I'm mother. But so I was at his house filming MIB, the third thing that I worked with him on. And he showed me, he's like, "You're on this." And I'm like, "Oh, really?" And he showed me, he popped it in, and it was on the collection. We saw it. I'm like, "Oh my God, there I am." In all my glory.
Well, I'll definitely grab some screenshots of that. Unfortunately, I can't show the whole thing, but I'll grab screenshots.
Well, you can't show much because.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I look awfully cute, but unless you put one of those little, I was so young, I look so young in that, but if you put one of those little bars over, like the little tape things
over, like a blurring or something, yeah. Pixelating,
or like just a little line or something.
I'll do that.
The boobage is there, yeah.
Well, but that was the thing about you like to draw was
no boobs.
There's no boobs when you like to draw.
No nudity.
But yeah, it was when I originally, Deborah was going to be playing the role of the physical therapist.
Right.
As I've said on this show a few times, when half the cast bailed on me, it was Deborah. And the reason I gave Deborah a co-producer credit was because, first off, Deborah, when we lost our cast, the first thing I said was, "Hey, do you want to play the mom now?" And she's like, "Absolutely."
Well, yeah, but it was also because I was doing the table read, and the person that was supposed to read that role wasn't there. So I was reading the lines for the physical therapist, but I was also reading the lines for the mother.
Right.
And that's how that happened. It wasn't because
once everybody bailed, then it was like, okay, well, I was going to switch those up anyway. So now I can.
Well, now you were free to do whatever you wanted.
Do whatever. And then Deborah turned around and got me Trista Robinson, who played the aunt. And dude, oh my God.
She's so good.
She was just.
The thing is, you guys are talking about the Psycho fan film short Mother, and then you got the role of the mother here. And just my head, the way it works, I'm thinking now I want to see you do the role in You Like to Draw as Mrs. Bates.
There you go.
I'll just reveal something. I was telling Todd before we even started recording today that I have watched a few of the links you sent us of all the films you sent us.
Don't mind me. I'm just putting something in the oven.
Gotta love it. It's a cooking show as well.
Yeah. This is actually not for me. This is for my husband. Vegan macaroni and cheese.
So if anybody wants to make an order, Deborah's number is, and she delivers in person.
No. If I make you something and you're too far away, we'll just have to eat it ourselves. Sorry.
I'm not that far. I'm just in Australia.
Oh, if it's for you, then I'll hop a plane.
There you go.
I was saying that what I was telling Todd before is that, in my opinion, your role in You Like to Draw is your best one. Best performance.
Thank you.
I really love that one. And
thank you.
And you wanting to move away from horror and do drama and stuff like that, I think is a good decision.
Well, that's a little bit of a misconception because just because a lot of my fans know me from the horror films that I've done, it's not that I started out being like, that's what I want to do. I want to be in horror films. I actually know actors and actresses who their goal is to star in horror films. That was never my goal. When I started out in my acting career, I mentioned the story about, struggling when I was younger and then finally being able to afford to go to acting school. My goal was to become a good, solid actor and
Thespian.
not, oh, gee, I want to be in horror films. That wasn't it. When I was young, I was in a very difficult spot. I didn't have any support from family. I had no one. I was very young. I was like fresh out of high school. I was, just working all these jobs, trying to figure out how I was going to, make it. And like I said, I was able to finally get myself into acting school, and I was getting myself out there, but I really had no one. I had no one mentoring me. This is before the internet. People didn't have computers. There were no cell phones. It wasn't something like, oh, I could go on Facebook or go into YouTube and watch these other people and see examples of how these other people do it, or
Right.
connect with people who were in the business and follow their example. There was none of that. None of that. I was completely alone. And little by little, I managed to get acting roles. But unfortunately, they weren't in the kind of films that I set out to do. I ended up in some fun, frolicky kind of, at the time, these would have been considered low budget, which would be very high budget for us today, because back then they did everything on actual film, which was very expensive as compared to now. So it's funny when I call the films that I did back in the 80s and 90s low budget. By today's standards, they would be high budget, but back then they were low budget. So, but the films that I got involved in, that I was able to be cast in, just happened to be a lot of them were horror comedies. They weren't actually like scary horror films. They were funny, frolicky, blockbuster type fodder, fun. They were fun, straight to video horror comedies were most of the ones I did. And then I did a few that were a little bit more like horror films, like Evil Spirits, that starred Karen Black and Artie Johnson and Michael Berryman. And that was one that was like a little bit of a, actually scarier kind of feel to it, but that had comedy in it too, actually. So a lot of those films were I was very happy to work on all those films. All the films that I worked on, I wanted to work on them. I was happy to be cast in them. I was happy to work on them. I had a lot of fun. I worked with, some great filmmakers, like, besides Catherine Bigelow and John Hughes and Paul Verhoeven, some of the other like more independent filmmakers like Fred Olen Ray, who I worked with for 3 times. And like Beverly Hills Vamp and Mob Boss, and I think I worked with him on something else. Oh, Warlords with David Carradine. Those kind of films were films I was getting roles in. And then I started, and because I was young, I was really young, and, I had a nice figure. So filmmakers were taking advantage of that. And so I just kind of got put in this category of Scream Queen, which I didn't even know what that was.
There's the word.
That's the word I hate. I'm like, no, don't call me a Scream Queen. But that's the category I got put into. And that's not what I was working toward, but that's what I just kind of fell into. And, I'm grateful for being known for something. I mean, that's great that, I did acquire a lot of fans for those earlier films that I did. And then I was out of acting for a while due to a psycho ex person who won't be named. But I was out of acting for about a decade almost. And not quite, because I did have a couple jobs during that time, but I couldn't like full out really pursue my career because it was just impossible with the situation I was in. But anyway, I digress. But when I really got back into everything full-fledged, I have to say I am grateful for all the fans and all the people that knew me or that know me from those earlier films I did, because I would have, when I got back into acting back in, it's been like, maybe 12, 13 years now that I'm back into it. Maybe longer, but when I first, it was because I got on Facebook. I got on Facebook, and I was a latecomer to Facebook, but I got on Facebook, and not even thinking I would get back into acting. I had no thought of that at all. I had a regular job with a corporation, and I wasn't thinking about acting. I just got on there, and all these people started, it didn't take long. I started reconnecting with a lot of my actor friends and, director friends and people that I knew from back in the day. And all of a sudden I got a tidal wave of friend requests. And I got all these messages from people saying, Are you the Debra Lamb? Is this Debra Lamb? Where have you been? What happened to you? I had so many people asking me what happened. And I had actually one friend that said he thought I had died. And he said, yeah.
Well, that's a surprise, isn't it?
No, I'm not dead. No, I'm still here. But that's how it happened. And had it not have been for those films, of course, it could have been even better. I could have been in, bigger films, and that would have been better. But, but had it not been for the horror films and the horror fans that knew me from these films, and people that, I was one of the beloved original Scream Queens. Had it not been for them, then I know, making the face. I know, because I always make a face, but
there are worse things to be called, I think. But
yeah, exactly. But had it not been for them, I would have been starting from ground zero. So, which is great. But when it comes to Betty Ty, what you were saying is, you were happy to see me get into another genre. Well, I've always done things that were more dramatic. It's just that nobody has seen me in those things, I always had the intention. I've done short films that were dramatic, very dramatic and serious, but those films did not have the audience. So the films in my career early on that had a large audience, a very large audience, were the horror films. And because horror, of course, it's still true for today, and it was true back then, and it was true back in the 50s, is that people love horror films. They love them. The films that come out now that are horror films, people like run out to see the fandom of horror films is immense. So, I have to thank my horror fans for, being able for me to revitalize my career after being gone for so long. And now, but over the years I have, and thanks to Todd, because Todd was really the first person who, believed in me and believed in my talent and put me in serious roles. I mean, we haven't done Paradise Road yet, but that was the original one that we were going to do. But so that one we're still going to do. But because Todd saw in me something and said, yeah, I see you in these roles. So then when You Like to Draw came up and was working on that, he saw me in the mother. Well, no, I was not in the mother role, but I was in another role. But I ended up in the mother role. So anyway, long story short, I should
It was
say
meant to happen.
short story long. I cannot tell a short story.
All right, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That was part 1 of this episode.
Part 2 will be coming up very, very soon. So look it up on the
Straight Shooters YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.
See you soon.